The land of Israel is strong. The people of Israel are strong. The spirit of Israel is strong. Am Yisrael Chai.
This is Daniel Steinberg, and you're listening to the Maggid Method. This week, my guest is Rabbi Avi Goldstein. He's the senior rabbi at Beth Jacob congregation in Columbus, Ohio. I'm personally friendly with Rabbi Goldstein. I've seen him evolve over the 12 or 13 years that he's been in Columbus. He takes the drasha very seriously. It's something that's very important to him. It's clear.
For too long, we've been afraid to be proud and strong Jews.
He's an extremely dynamic speaker. He paces the stage, which he does for a very intentional reason. We talk about his prep time and how much rehearsal goes into it, who he runs his drasha by, what to leave in and what to keep out. He has a comedian's philosophy, and that is that he will never blame the audience. It's your job to keep them alert, engaged, awake, and inspired.
Like if someone falls asleep during your speech, it's your fault. It's not their fault. In other words, it's the speaker's fault.
As we discuss his goals for the drasha and how they fit into the overarching mission statement for the shul. We discuss the impact of his drashas, where it's a several-week theme led to a $100,000 plus initiative inspired by one of the congregants. We talk about structure. We talk about the opening that he learned from Charlie Harari, how he opens his drashas for maximum impact.
It's funny, I once heard Charlie Harari speak about the speech opening. It was really stuck with me. He said a speech opening is like the opening to a movie.
We talk about where he goes to find stories for his drashas, and also the balance between story content and Torah content in the drasha, how to find that perfect balance.
Like Rabbi Howard once said, your speech shouldn't be something that you could take into the bathroom.
We talk about Rabbi Goldstein's mentors, his role models. It's fantastic. This is a really fun, informal conversation between two friends. How he goes about leading his congregation, with the drasha being the guidepost for that is it was very, very eye-opening to me. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And without further ado, here is Rabbi Goldstein and I talking about drashas on the Maggid Method podcast.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the interview. I'm flattered that you find me worthy to be interviewed for such a podcast.
I walk across town and listen to you speak.
Thank you. I'm really honored. It's something I do take seriously, and I think it's very important, especially for a rabbi, to be able to do. So thank you. So the question is, how has it evolved?
Yeah.
So I can't necessarily point to specific things that evolved in the content. I think that I can't point to a moment that the content has shifted. I'd say that over the years, I made a concerted effort to change the way I speak. So like originally when I came, I was reading basically. And there's a lot of advantages to reading from a prepared text. First of all, you don't make mistakes. Second of all, it's easier to do. There's less on you to remember, to present. Third is, you say it exactly right. Right? It's not just that you don't make mistakes, say the wrong thing. It's that you say it exactly right. So you can structure a speech and sort of optimize it for dramatic effect, let's say, or intellectual effect, or whatever you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's like a script.
It's like a script, exactly. And the truth of the matter is that most politicians are reading. It's like I used to think that, okay, so like if they could do it, why can't I do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's their bread and butter. And one thing that assumes is that you prepare a speech, which I am a big believer in. Even now that I don't do it exactly that way, I still write everything out in advance, which is very important in terms of helping me order it and knowing what I'm going to say, not faking it on Shabbos morning because I didn't prepare enough content in advance or whatever.
So write it out word for word?
I do write it out word for word. I'm not necessarily married to the word for word, but a lot of times there are important phrases that I've pre-thought out. I want to say it for maximizing effect, and certainly the structure. How you what you want to cover and how you want it delivered. So it's written out, and I used to read it, And since then, I've gotten away from that in the last probably 7 or 8 years. Congregant pushed me to do it, and he was really like a coach, and he was great. Actually, I still practice like high holiday speeches with him in advance. Um, and you are able to engage in the audience more, which has a huge benefit. Also, like the way we've done it is like I move around on stage. I think this is
Really
like
that. Yeah.
debate, between speakers, stay stationary, fixed point, or move around. I feel like move around is a technique that you have that helps keep the audience like trying to figure out what's going on. You know what I
You're a
mean?
moving target. Yeah.
Target, it forces people to like, well, is he really going to step down that one step? You know what I mean? So um, there's that helps, I think, keep people engaged and
Yeah,
create.
I find it very effective. I see it. One of the things that what I do when I'm sitting in the crowd listening to someone speak, whether it's a rabbi or someone else, is I don't watch the rabbi or the speaker. I watch the crowd. I look at the audience, and I can tell that no one sleeps and everyone's alert, and that's very rare for you. I'm saying for a speaker, and they're present, totally present for you, which is very powerful. So again, so in the old days, you used to read off the notes, and probably look up every fifth sentence or so,
Right.
and then go to the notes, and then you evolved since then. In terms of the style, has the style changed? Has your speaking style changed?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Someone have to like go back
Yeah,
to the video tape. I'm not sure if it's fundamentally changed or not.
yeah,
Um, we do have the audience has changed. It used to be older and fewer observant people in the crowd. Now we still have those people, but we also have a lot of younger observant people in the crowd and a whole mix.
Mhm.
So, there is different sometimes needs that I'm talking about today, or I might give a message that I wouldn't have given 10 years ago that's more resonant with, sort of that demographic, not at the exclusion of the others, but, different at different
Yeah,
points in time, you need to address different things. And 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 so in that sense it's changed. And as the demo, like the way I fundamentally view rabbanus and speaking is the same, which is I'm here to serve a congregation. So like it's not about me, it's about them. It's about how do I best serve them. And in that same sense, like you mentioned people being alert, that's the biggest compliment, I think.
yeah,
um, like what I say is that about public speaking is not that I'm the world's expert, but like if someone falls asleep during your speech, it's your fault. It's not their fault. In other words, it's the speaker's fault if someone falls asleep. Now, of course, you're going to have a percentage that always falls asleep. Those guys, and there's nothing you can do about that. But if your percentage is not where you want it to be, if you're seeing that a lot of people are sleeping or not engaged, that's your fault. It's not their fault. Like, I've heard rabbis complain about a congregation that the congregation doesn't, falls asleep or whatever it is. You should be more attentive. I once saw a shul where the rabbi, basically, there were a lot of chairs against the wall. So the rabbi angled the chairs towards the amud, towards where the rabbi speaks from, to prevent like the wall effect, which is, the reclining effect. So, that's not a winning strategy to me. That's trying to compel people to do something they're not enjoying, right? Or
yeah,
they'd be sleeping. People do what they like to do, what's best for them. And so you have to make your speech compelling enough that's something they want to listen to. And if
right.
you're boring them, that's your fault, not theirs.
Yeah, like in entertainment and comedy, it would be the equivalent of blaming the audience for being a bad comedian. You
Exactly.
can't blame the audience.
Right? The audience doesn't think you're funny. It's not the audience's fault. Right?
Right,
No,
right.
I think when it comes to speeches, like especially Divrei Torah, so there's like more of a guilt factor, right? Like, how could you not be listening to the rabbi talk Divrei Torah on the parsha, right? Like, so like that's a guilt factor. Like the right thing to do is that you should, and I think rabbis have that certain sense a lot of times, like the audience is being, we're doing the wrong thing by not, and I think that's not the business we're in, you know. I think that our job is to inspire them or engage them. And if we're not being inspiring and engaging, that's our fault, not theirs.
Great. Let me ask you. So you have a very different speaking style than I would say. It's a little bit more. Don't take this the wrong way, but old-fashioned. I would imagine. You get up there, and so you'll start with some announcements in a kind of conversational voice, and then when it's time for the sermon, you switch gears, and it becomes the sermon voice. It's
Right.
not your normal speaking voice. And so I'm curious, did you start off that way, or is that something that did you learn that way from a mentor? Did you think that that's the way that it should be done, or is it intentional?
Right. So I've given this point some thought, and I've been criticized sometimes for this over the years, and I've sort of stuck to it. Um, I think some announcements are important because I think that usually the announcements I don't make all the announcements. I make certain announcements that I think are community building announcements, not technical announcements. So the announcements that I'm making are there because I feel like I'm representing the community in a different way than the president represents the community.
Yeah.
Right. So when I wish someone a Mazel Tov, or I thank someone for sponsoring Shalosh Shudas in memory of their, father or whatever it is. So then I'm that to me is an element of community. So I lose something because it's funny. I once heard Charlie Harari speak about the speech opening. It was really stuck with me. He said a speech opening is like the opening to a movie. Are we allowed to talk about movies on this podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, speech opening is like an opening
Kosher movies.
Kosher movies. So in movies, the beginning is usually like something you don't know what's going on. It's like a mystery. You have this scene, like, this thing fading in and out. You don't know exactly where you are. You're trying to, and it can go on for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And that opening scene is a mysterious moment that engages, like you want to know more, right? So I try to do that with the opening of my speeches, that what I'm saying has to either be a mystery, like the one first line should be a mystery, or just something very engaging. Because a lot of times I'll say something that will catch people off guard, so they wonder about it or whatever. I'm sure he does it way better than me, but I think that's a powerful thing. So the opening is really a huge, huge deal of your speech. It's like, are you going to get people or you're not? The proverbial hook, right?
Yeah.
And you forfeit a little bit of that when you do the announcements before. But I just feel like it makes the shul a colder place. If like the rabbi's not just like a scholar in residence, he's not just like a guy coming to give a speech. It's not like hiring Hillary Clinton to give a $500,000 speech.
It's not a keynote.
Halavai, right? But it's not artificial. It's not like you're an expert on a topic and they brought in an expert lecturer, to deliver, remarks on, the state of bed bugs in China, right? Like that's not the goal. Like the rabbi is simultaneously acting. I mean, to me, this speaks to what the role of the speech is in general. Like to me, I think there's a fair question what the role of speeches are. Like, how many times have you seen a speech actually change someone? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it's not every week and it's not every person. And a lot of times it's hard to quantify. Like the way I speak, the way I view speaking for myself, like the mission of speaking is to create a ruach in the shul, to create a ruach for the community. And hopefully, like you create enough ruach momentum, like this is where we're headed, this is where we're going, this is the values that we're going to emphasize, these are the ideas that we're going to get involved in, and hopefully people can latch on to a broader movement. That's like what I'm thinking when I'm giving a speech, when I'm giving it. So it's very much like, as opposed to just being an expert witness, as opposed to being a guest dynamic lecturer, right? Or the purpose is to help craft community, and a community has to have a mission, right? So, but a community also has to feel like a community. So I feel like when the rabbi's speaking on Shabbos, the rabbi has two functions, at least two. I don't know, maybe there's a third one I haven't thought about, but at least two, right? One is that they are representing the community qua community, and in that sense, their job is to bring everyone together. And if there's a simcha or a tragedy or an event that needs to be called attention to, it's their job to do that, not in
Yeah.
a sense, in a community building sense. And then to compliment the community when they've done something amazing, to compliment a balabas when they've done something individually amazing, right? To call attention to an important community event, and then also to say, "Chaver, okay, this is what we should collectively. This is the ruach hayom, if you will." And that's sort of how I view that moment. So I think I lose something in the speech by doing it if you're looking at it purely from a speech, speech point of view. But I think you gain on the
Like
community.
you're taxing on the runway a little bit before you launch into your, liftoff.
Exactly. A lot of times, like I've written the speech and I don't write the announcements. It's like I'm reading the announcement on the bulletin or something, is whatever. So like sometimes I have to change my opening because it doesn't lead in well, and it could be like the opening was way better in what I wrote than in what I'm actually going to do, because like there has to be a transition sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you can't go from making an announcement to a very abrupt, and this,
Yeah.
whatever.
So what happens? So from my perspective, what I see is you're talking conversationally, and then all of a sudden there's this pause,
Yeah.
and then there's this booming voice comes
Yeah.
from the stage,
Yeah.
and it's like it's almost like a signal for everybody that okay, now the speech has started.
Right.
Um,
What do you think of that? Is it good or bad?
I mean, no, it's definitely effective. I mean, you've effectively trained people to pay attention when you start. They know there's a clear break between chit chat announcements and then okay, the sermon starts. I'm more curious about the tone of voice that you use. It's clearly meant to project. I would say it's stately. It has a dignified type of approach to it. I never met Rabbi Stavsky. He passed away before I moved here. But if I had to guess, he probably spoke something like that. I'm curious if that was something that you felt that. Did you learn that way to speak that way, or was it? Did you think that you're addressing kind of an older demographic when you first started, and maybe that was their expectation, or
Opposed to what? As opposed to what style are you
as opposed
contrasting?
to sometimes you'll see speakers a little bit more conversational, less. It sounds like their normal speaking voice. I think less projection, more maybe a little bit more intimate, a little bit more conversational tone. I mean, we're talking. You don't talk this way. We're talking the way that we're talking right now. You don't speak from the stage.
Right. No, 100%.
Yeah.
I just think of rabbis that I've seen speak like that. I'm not sure I've seen that many.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
Conversational way. First of all, yeah, it's a very big room. Like you have
Yeah.
to speak very loudly to.
Right.
That's
Get
taxing.
the back rows.
Like you can't. What's it called? And if you're having a conversation, it's just it's much more relaxed.
Yeah.
And so
So
I think you lose some of the
the oomph.
some of the gravitas of the thing. I mean, it would be different if I had a microphone. Like I feel like when I speak with microphones, it's so much more fun. Like it's very hard to speak without a microphone.
Yeah.
And like I can't even imagine doing like a conversational thing that everyone's going to hear,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll keep everyone engaged in a conversation. I just can't imagine that working in
Yeah.
this. No, sometimes
Part
in
of
a
it,
more
right.
relaxed shot for this or whatever, but
Part of it also, I think, is the I'm trying to think of the right word for it. It sounds very polished, which is fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you rehearse it or not, but it sounds really.
I read it probably like from shop for about a half hour. I read it over and over again Shabbos morning, and then I reherse it once. My wife has to suffer through it.
Does she make changes?
Yeah. She'll a lot of times, like A lot of times when you're addressing an issue, so you have to be tactful, right? So you're a lot of times unsure, like, were you too much, were you too little, right? And
Yeah.
getting or like something will sound good in your head, but doesn't sound good in somebody else's head. So, yeah, a lot of times they'll be,
Mhm.
you
Do you
should do
think
this.
that she's a good gauge of what you need
I
to
think so.
after
I
feedback?
would say when she gives me feedback, I incorporate it probably 75% of the time.
Hmm. Yeah. So right. So it definitely looks, I mean, you when you get up there, like it looks, you look prepared, you look thought out, you know, articulate, it's structured well. It definitely, you can tell you've put your work into it. You know, I've watched it a bunch of times, and it definitely is effective. Um, and it's interesting to me also to hear that that's because everybody has a different goal for the drasha, right? So some people's goal is, you know, I want to transform people, I want to change people, I want to get them to grow and get the
Right.
it sounds to me like you are shaping the shul with your drasha. You're shaping the
So this gets into like the philosophy of the shul a little bit, right? Like, so first
yeah
of all, if I thought I would just challenge the people that think that they change people. Like I've been to inspiring speeches which I've been inspired at. So first of all, the speeches which I'm inspired at are not every speech. And second of all, the ones which I'm inspired at, a lot of times that doesn't translate into something real. So you had a moment of inspiration, even if there was a takeaway, a lot of times I don't do the takeaway.
yeah
So the moment of inspiration does not necessarily translate to something more concrete than momentary, fleeting inspiration. In my
hmm
and in my experience being on the other end. So what I what I believe for a shul is that like a shul's job is to create a framework of growth, which is that it's like you're creating an environment with different entry points in which people can be inspired to take their next step in their Yiddishkeit, regardless of where that is. Now that happens in multiple axes. Happens with a Friday night davening. It happens with a like a Karlach thing. It happens with a Lipa Schmelzer concert like we just did, or
yeah
Zusha. It happens with having a great Jewish Yarchei Kala, Jewish experience. It happens in that thing. So all those things contribute to the ruach l'shul. But there's a certain opportunity that you have to set and be more explicit about the tone and values that we're all striving for, we're all trying to get on board for, and inspire them in a more overt way rather than a more subtle way towards those goals. But I fundamentally see the speech as um, part of that basket of
hmm
creating the framework in which people will be inspired to to take the next step in the Yiddishkeit and make a difference and make an impact. Like it's not just individually. Like for a shul, I believe a shul's mission is to help collectively as a team build Yiddishkeit. Right. So the speech is a very powerful tool to sort of ignite the mass. I'll give you an example. This year on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, I really hadn't done this before. I always struggle with the second day of Rosh Hashanah speech because it's a lower key room than the first day, and it's it's not clear exactly what to talk about. Bichlal, I think you should have a whole mini series on the role of the high
yeah
holidays, which is
yeah
rabbis are very confused, including myself, about
yeah
what is the role of the high holiday speech. But
right.
do
I've
that.
heard some people divide it up, like first day is like Beinam Lamakom and second day is Beinam Lachavero or vice versa or something like that. You know, people. But
I mean, what does that mean even? I don't even know what that
yeah.
means. Like what is the goal of that? What is the goal, right? Like what is the goal? So I think that's still a question. So, but like I didn't know what to do. So this year I did something different. I tackled a specific issue. I tackled the kavod which we give mechanchim in the community and the way they are financially appreciated and et cetera, et cetera. And I actually got a tremendous amount of positive feedback about it.
Hmm.
I cleared it with the school first. that I let them know I wasn't going to speak about this without giving them a heads up and whatever. But I spoke about them, how important they were, and I was very gratified. Like, since then, people have taken initiatives. We raised over $100,000 to an ancillary benefit packet, to do that, and congregants took initiative. So, like,
Yeah.
that's a home center. That's saying we're a shul that's going to do this, and it's very gratifying when people take it seriously. And then it's when people do want to do something, even a few months later, that's hey, maybe we'll focus on this. That's a very gratifying thing. You know, it elevates the haracha for mechanchim. I know certain mechanchim very much. I got like certain mechanchim really appreciated that they're not that they were put on a pedestal. So
Mhm.
um, so it's sometimes you could do it to raise an issue, a specific issue like that, and if you could be, if you can then build on that in the spirit of what the agenda of the shul is, the community building component of the shul is, that's something that's very valuable. You know what I mean? The last few weeks have been very Israel focused because that's so relevant to people's lives and so much a part of how we're going to respond to Israel and the different things it touches. And but fundamentally, I view it as part of community building rather than
Right.
individual based. Like sometimes I feel like rabbis are talking, and I can't say I've never had this Yetzer Hara. When the rabbi's speaking, you're thinking of that congregant. That guy. I wish that guy spoke less Lashon Hara. I wish that guy, did this, or the other, right?
Mhm.
And you have that guy in your mind when you're speaking. That's fantastic, but like usually that's not that's not the goal, right? And even like, and did he hear you? Like, and if
Oh,
he
you thought
heard
you were talking about somebody else.
speak less
Yeah.
Lashon Hara now, like
Yeah.
I just find that like when you're focused on individual acute changes, it's harder to gauge whether you're effective. It's hard to
Mhm.
be, and I think that's not even the role. I think the role of the rabbi's drasha is to sort of this is the ruach hayom. This is what the shul is doing. This is what the shul is about. This is what we're focused on.
It sounds almost like each speech is a mini mission statement of the shul, of the community.
Rabbi Hauer, who was like my Rebbe in rabbinics, I was interned by him and went to his what's it called? Went to his used to have these Friday morning rabbi chaburas. So he said every rabbi has one speech. Every speaker has one speech. Which is like you're always coming back to Bach Habakuk Hamida Malachas. Like, in other words, you're always coming back to the
Yeah.
fundamental, and it takes the form and this and that. But I think that's true. I think that there's mission driven speaking.
So what is it for you? What are your messages that you keep on coming back to?
And the messages I keep coming back to fundamentally have to do with leading a passionate and active, proactive Judaism, not static, uh, not not afraid to take the next step. And and the flip side of that coin is like meaning and impact and building and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So let me ask you this past Shabbos. So this was a great drasha to be in the audience for. You got applause. You got an applause. That probably doesn't happen too often. Um, but you clearly you were helping people feel good about themselves, which I thought was very in order for this particular Shabbos. The theme of the Shabbos was gratitude to the mechanchim. And it fit very well in with the whole university debacle
Couldn't
going
have
on.
had a better, like
Yeah, yeah,
layout. You know what I mean?
yeah, and there was great tocha and there was great substance too. You talked about the idea about beauty and culture all having being mugdar, being confined within the tent of shame to give it its purpose. So it was great. I loved it. I really it was great. I saw you afterwards. After Musaf, you turned around and you were kind of like eyeing the crowd. So I'm trying
Yeah.
to think what goes through your mind after. Can you even focus on Shemona Esrei after?
Hard. Almost any speech is very hard to focus on Shemona Esrei afterwards. Probably shouldn't daven most of it afterwards.
Yeah, you're trying to come down off this high
No,
cloud.
it's especially when a speech like that, like obviously the situation itself is terrible, but like like I prefer to talk about real things. You know what I mean? Like when nothing is going on in the world, it's like Baruch Hashem, but then I have to contrive something from some silly article in the New York Times about like I don't know what Amazon did yesterday.
Casual sneakers or casual shoes.
Casual shoes, like you remember that one.
Yeah,
So and that's an important message, right? The Kavanah
yeah.
Torah message, when we spoke about that, and living the life of dignity. These are not unimportant messages. Um, but when there's something meaningful, like truly that's occupying people's minds and it's affecting people viscerally, and they're glued to the news because what's going to happen next, and there's real fear, and there have been real incidents here, and it's like affecting people's kids. Like there's a kid beat up at OSU, for the because of the situation. So, and someone called me that wouldn't send their kid to OSU, would send them more likely to a Shiva today, but there's someone marching on today, right now, and like in Bexley with a terrible sign, so this is something that's really engulfed everyone, I feel like. And there are many issues, many very, very important issues which these hit. And to me, this was an opportunity to you're asking about like the audience reaction. Like, so yeah, so you want to, like, you put a lot into it, and you want to see if it resonated with people. You want to see people's reactions. You want to um you want to make sure that you hit the right notes, and just you want feedback, like if it's good, like you want feedback from
Yeah,
but
sure.
when you have the opportunity to speak out real things, like to me, like the level of intensity and energy that goes into a speech like that is so much. It's like a different madrega, like a different,
Yeah.
like,
I'll tell you, I
so
was sitting in the back, and after you finished, someone said, "That was real."
which
Uh,
one?
the last speech, the last drasha on Shabbos, someone after you finished and you got that applause, someone said, "Wow, that was real." And so I guess that's what you're aiming for.
Right.
That's
Yeah, I mean, listen, it made multiple points. First of all, it supported our Mechanchim initiative, right? Second of all, there was actual content about Hanukkah,
yeah.
uh, which was important. Like Rabbi Howard once said, your speech shouldn't be something that you could take into the bathroom. Like it shouldn't be all like stories, and it has to have real
Oh,
Torah,
hell.
which it did. And and uh and um and and sorry, it has to have real Torah content, and you want it to be relatable. It has to be something that affects people's lives. So this particular speech, it hit Mechanchim, it hit a current event, anti-Semitism coming from it. It hit the pitfalls of secular four-year liberal arts colleges. In other words, that's an important message too in that speech. Like there are multiple things that are important. It's important to support our Mechanchim. It's important to have a philosophical framework of a deeper meaning of Hanukkah. It's important to show the relevance of a Torah idea. That's something Rabbi Howard used to stress a lot, Torah's Chaim, like it should be a relevant idea to people. And it really called out the real true pitfalls of education. So it hit at least four very significant um, points within this presentation.
How did that speech evolve? How did the drasha evolve from you know Shabbos morning after the last drasha till Shabbos morning of the next drasha? How did walk me through, because it's the most recent one, so it probably sticks in your mind. How did it come together?
Well, like by me, I had to talk about like what happened with the university people, and I had to talk about Machancha. So those two things had to happen.
Hmm.
And the
Did you
Dvar
see the
Torah
automatic fit? Did you?
took me. It didn't dawn on me immediately the connection, but after a day or two of like thinking about it, it became obvious that how connected they are. Um, and then the Dvar Torah was easy because if you understand the philosophy of Hanukkah, I didn't think that it was very very obvious the connection to Hanukkah, so that was easy. What was harder was the story. I always have struggle with stories, are very hard for me to come up with a good story, which I think are so essential to speeches. So that's usually the hardest part is locating the
Love
story.
that story. The story about the newspaper. Is that the one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you want to tell it quickly?
I
Because
didn't
it's
think
great.
you liked the story. I wasn't
Loved
sure.
it. It's pretty rare that I hear a story that I haven't heard or that I can see where it's going, and I had no idea where it was going. It totally caught me off guard.
So, I mean, we were talking about not, like being brilliant and having all this information, but not knowing how to handle it and not knowing how to interpret it. Or you could be the president of Harvard and still think genocide of the Jews doesn't violate your policies. So, the story we told was about Rebbetzin Galinsky, or Rabbi Yankele Galinsky's mother. How in Europe she used to invite friends over who didn't know how to read, and she would read the newspaper to them. And one day she was cooking for Shabbos on a Thursday night, and she had invited them over, and they were sitting waiting for her to finish. And they looked at the newspaper, and because they couldn't read, they just looked at the pictures. And they saw a picture of an upside down boat. They thought there was a sinking ship. Must be there's a ship. They were freaked out. They went to, how could you be cooking? It says it must be a tragedy going on. How could this be? We have to, what should we do? And it's how many people died and what's the loss and etc. And she told them the problem with you is you don't know how to read. Because if you knew how to read, you're holding the newspaper upside down. And if you're holding the newspaper, I was showing them building a ship, not sinking a ship.
Yeah,
Right. And the point I was making with that story was that a lot of times you can have something, but if you don't know how to hold it right, then you're gonna misinterpret it. Right. So the point I was making is that they have all these knowledge, but they don't know how to use it. And it's the Torah that's our compass. Right? The Torah is what gives us the meaning. Teaches us how to read it, how to read these things, how to hold it right side up or upside down or whatever it is. And that
Mhm.
was the point I was making with the story.
That was great. Where did you find the story? Where did you or
Stories are really so hard. I always struggle with stories. That's my hardest part of a speech. I could spend hours on a Friday trying to find the right story. And that's what happened. I spent a long time Thursday night, Friday trying to find a
and
story.
where do you go? Where do you
The story I found in Rabbi Biederman's, one of his Kuntresim from
look?
whenever. Those are good. Sivan Rahab Meir is a good source. Rabbi Fran on the Parsha. I think I exhausted
Yeah,
uh, 1, 2, and 3, and all his other books too. And
first couple of years. Yeah,
what?
the first couple of years. I'm saying like once you exhaust
Yeah,
those stories,
through those.
got me through
Yeah.
6 years at Kollel. All his stories.
Exactly. Yafa Eliach's Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust is very good. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm looking at that now. For the high holidays, I bought one of the books from Baltimore. What's the name of Rabbi Spiro? His books are,
Mhm.
and whatever. It's an avoda. It's avoda. You have to
Yeah,
find the big avoda
yeah,
for stories. It's the hardest part
absolutely.
by far.
Um,
The other part of this speech, I'd say also, which didn't come to me to the end, is how to make the point most powerfully. It didn't occur to me till like the very, very end, like if I was writing it, that like to call for the veto unless like to call for their resignation unless they went back to CTA sixth grade, which is a funny image that you're
yeah,
painting, right?
yeah,
So like on the one hand, you're saying they should resign, which is what everyone's thinking and everyone's buying into, but then you're making the point that even a sixth grader and that like bitui, that ability to phrase it that way came at the very end of the speech, which is I thought a very important part of the speech.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I'll give you another dilemma I had also reading it. Like I thought I opened rather than quoting people, I opened by going by, and I don't know if this was good, you could tell me, but my opening was the transcript of the back and forth.
Yeah.
So I wanted everyone to hear it. I know
Right. You can't watch it.
but
Right.
everyone watched it, but hear like what they said, what the questions were. And I thought that would be the most like, okay, we're into want to hear what he's going to say about this because everyone's on everyone's minds. But it was very long. It was longer than most of my openings by at least a, 2 paragraphs. So I was like, do I cut? Do I not cut? Was a difficult decision because if you go too long in your opening, you're gonna lose people. And once you lose people, you lose people. So that was a decision, so to speak, to figure to
Yeah.
stick.
I think it depends on how engaging what you're doing is. And it was clearly, I mean, it was terribly engaging, unfortunately. It was something that it was like watching a train wreck, you know.
Right, right.
Well,
But
let
also not to say it over as a story, but to relive it, react it.
Yeah,
Also a decision to what would be the most gripping for people.
yeah. I think you made the right choice. I think you did. Let me ask you this, because there's different schools of thought about this, and I'm curious what yours are. Some people are more self-revelatory, meaning that they share parts of themselves, from the stage. That doesn't seem to be your style. I'm curious what you think about it. What do you think about that?
I think it's powerful. Maybe I should do it more. Sometimes I think there's like a little hubris, like does everyone really,
Fair.
sometimes I'm just more maybe of a private person than other people, but sometimes I think there's also like a little bit of hubris involved, like whatever. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, but like I don't know, maybe I'm just not so good at that part.
Mhm.
Maybe if I practiced it more, like I'm not sure how it would have expressed itself in this speech, for example.
Yeah, not necessarily in that one, but I'll tell you that the reason that I'm thinking of it is because you spoke, forgetting whose bris this was. Was it Arya's bris? I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
it was
my grandfather.
where you spoke about your grandfather,
Yeah.
and I remember, and that was a long time ago. I mean, that's 11 years ago.
That's a remarkable story, though. Like that's
Yeah,
an exceptional story.
right. But the part that I think that stuck in my mind is he got choked up over it. It was a very it was a very emotional and very personal story,
Right.
and it made erosion. It made a huge impression upon me.
Right.
11 years later, I still think about it, and so I'm curious. Some people will try to summon that up, those types of experiences up within themselves in order to help people grow. Other people will kind of take the approach that my life is private. I'm here to lead, and I'm here to help. But
I'm
but
generally a
not
more
not
private person. I think I'm a more private person in that regard, but I'm not opposed to it. Like if I felt there was something that I was comfortable sharing, I would share it. But like
yeah.
my goal is not like to talk about like the issues I had. You know what I mean? If there's a relevant issue that I feel comfortable sharing, I would do it. But like that's not, I don't know, maybe it could be more, maybe that is an area I could work on more. When I first came to this job, someone told me I should do that. I didn't.
Mhm.
But it wasn't like I'm not doing that. It was like it just didn't manifest.
Right. I think that from my experience, the benefit of it is that it fuses you with the congregation. They see you as a human being. They see you as someone that they
Oh,
can relate to. Yeah.
yeah.
That's a benefit. Not for creative self-expression or therapy or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Or let me give you an insight into the rabbinate. Which some people I find that too self-referential, but to show them that you're a human being just like them, and that you're growing, and I found that to be effective. But I know that there's different personalities and different schools of thought on it. So
But it's not, I wouldn't say this is a school of thought. It's probably more like personality based.
mhm.
Probably something I could work on more.
Yeah, I spoke to Rabbi Daniel Lapin, for example, and he said, he comes from a previous generation of rabbis, and his father was I think chief rabbi of South Africa. And that was not his. He's like, I'm here to lead, to teach, not to give insights into my own my personal life. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just ask you a couple of quick
Right.
questions.
I did that before Rosh Hashanah on the topic of tefillah. I, sh-
Mhm.
I shared like I find it a personal struggle. That maybe this is what you mean, but I do think that resonated with people, validate people. A bunch of people came over after me after I just gave that speech and like wanted to learn about tefillah. Could be it was a speech, but it was also like this is how let's just call it like it is. Like this is really hard. It's not easy. It's something I'm working on. It's something
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I do think that was probably the last time I did it. Um,
Wasn't so long ago.
you're making yourself vulnerable. It's a vulnerable. The rabbi's supposed to be the rabbi, right? So now you're saying you have a hard time focusing on davening. Like what kind of rabbi doesn't have a longish one esrei? You know what I mean? But it's honest and it's something everyone struggles with, even those with a longish one esrei. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that was.
So
I
who are
I
some
got
of your
myself to
mentors?
that time that my goal wasn't to make it more relatable. It was like, listen, I think my point was trying to go back to that. I was
Yeah.
like no one has this easy. You know what I mean? Like the rabbi doesn't have it easy. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't for the sake of sharing. It was really for the sake of trying to show people that like no one has this easy and it's hard to work on. It's like not quantifiable. It's like Eastern,
Hmm.
not Western. You know what I mean? And and like yeah, it's a slog. You have to slog through it and work on it and figure it out. And we could do it together and whatever. This is what I've been doing.
Hmm.
For me, learning about it really helped, and
Hmm.
that was I think objective. I mean, then I don't
Got
think
it.
I've done it since then. Not Bashita, just
But
no,
people have asked you to do it. That's interesting to me.
no. When I was coming, I was meeting with like a community leader, like he was like coaching me or whatever about leadership. And he was telling me how he thinks this is like the new trend in rabbis. Not
Hmm.
not an Orthodox person. Not that
Hmm. Yeah. So tell me about your mentors. Tell me some of who are your mentors and who do you admire? Who did you listen to growing up? Who do you aspire to? Who do you?
I mean, my mentor in Rabbanus is Rabbi Hauer,
Hmm.
clearly. Like I followed him mostly. I interned in the White Shul also a little bit with Eitan Feiner, who's amazing. But he's so unique that like I didn't see him as really a template for myself. Rabbi Hauer, is someone that is very, very talented and like he was more someone that I thought his style I could adopt more. I also was by him much, much longer in Baltimore and whatever. So Rabbi Hauer, I'd say, is my number one model in Rabbonos. Mentors, Sue Berkowitz is a mentor, big mentor of mine. And Moshe Bain on some level is a mentor. I mean, I listened to a lot of Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg, huge impact at one point. Shimshon Pincus, huge impact. Listened to a lot of his tapes.
Yeah.
Um, 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 yeah, I mean, I would say like the tapes I listened to of Yaakov Weinberg and probably of Yaakov Weinberg, number one, and then on Rabbanim that I sort of learned from primarily Rabbi Howard and Rabbi Berkowitz.
Mhm. I think you touched upon some of this already, but some of the best feedback that you've gotten, um, and the worst, and it could be maybe words, it could be actions, it could be.
The best feedback I think I got was when someone challenged me to do more, and like worked with me like a coach almost to like change my style of speaking, I think, from going from the paper to not the paper. Um, like the worst that was like the best feedback, his point was basically weren't and most constructive was like constructive criticism in a very legitimate way. Um, Worst feedback, like in the sense like that wasn't constructive.
No more that
The
It's
guy.
just, it's just difficult to hear. Someone just didn't like what you were doing. So just someone, or maybe a group of people, or something just fell on deaf ears, or just people didn't resonate with people. Everyone's got stinkers, every now and then.
I don't really, Baruch Hashem, like I shouldn't say this like out loud, but like I really have snipers, no one's sniping at me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that the shul's perfect. There's uh lots of fissure, challenges and areas that could create, there are pressure points, and I don't always navigate them properly, uh and I don't know that I'm, and some of them are problems that are a little bit intractable. Um, but we try and do the best we do, we try and be fair, we try and um make everyone feel good, try and run the shul responsibly. Um, at the same time, we also don't we're not, I wouldn't say we're like a vanilla shul. You know what I mean? Like we're not just there to daven. Like in other words, there's, like I said, there's a mission, there's a vision. There are people that I think feel that they're part of a mission of building a Torah community, um, and that are ready to roll up their sleeves to make stuff happen. And they've done that remarkably. And I don't feel like I get sniped at. I feel like like usually the criticism will fall into a particular box that I'm not already unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
So, or boxes, and those represent legitimate areas of frustration people have with a shul. Um, some of them we could do a better job of, some of them we can't, um, and some of them we will. So, some are highly political and some just require a quick fix. Some require a compromise. Some require more attention. So the solutions aren't uh, always there. Like some problems, some challenges are just the way the world is. Like social dynamics can create realities. So what if the social dynamics were different? Yeah, okay, so you should do this, this, and that to change the social dynamics. Well, that's not like the easiest thing in the world, right? Um, you know, so
Do
it's
you ever address any of these from the pulpit?
do I what?
Do you address any of these issues, shul issues from the pulpit, or do you reserve
Sure.
that?
I mean, sure. In general, I try to be positive from the pulpit. I don't like to give mussar. I'm not. I don't believe in giving mussar so much. I think that mussar creates cynicism, cynical reactions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather inspire people towards something good. Now, sometimes you can give mussar by speaking in a positive way about a concept, right? Which is fine. That I would do. So, yeah, the answer is yes, I would, and yes, I do, but usually in a positive way, like very rarely in you shouldn't do this or don't do that or
Mm-hmm.
that's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I try and speak more to values.
Got it. Okay, last question I'm going to ask you is if you have, and you are, you have an assistant rabbi, and I'm sure you mentor him to some extent. If you have advice for a young rabbi just starting out, an emerging rabbi, what in this area of public speaking specifically, what would you try to impress upon
Never start within this week's parsha.
him?
Never start with the Dvar Torah, almost never, because that is usually will not engage people. I mean, I think there are a few points. I think always never start with the Dvar Torah. Always start with something that engages people. Um, always try and say something somewhat novel. Don't just say something obvious. Anything that people can read in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, they don't need you to say. You know what I mean? Don't say. Try and do something innovative. Um, map out your speech in advance. Don't wing it on the way to shul Shabbos morning. You know the story with the rabbi and the like sucking on that thing on his way back and forth. You know the story?
Remind me. I know I've heard it, but
I
just it's not
told
coming.
the rabbi like for 15 years, the rabbi's speech was always exactly 8.5 minutes or 10.5 minutes or whatever it was. And then one day he walks into shul, and he gives a 25 minutes to the rabbi. What happened? Why did you go from 8 for 50 years? You've been doing 8.5, now it's 25 minutes. Well, I used to prepare my speech on the way to shul, so I just moved, another mile away. So extra, don't wing it. Don't wing it. I think the Rambam talks extensively how much effort and craft has to go into public speaking. If you wing it, you're gonna not maximize the potential of that moment. Don't like I believe I believe that in what I said, which is that the speech, don't underestimate the power of the speech. Like you're not just giving a Dvar Torah, like you're setting a mission for your shul. That's what it is. And I think, and you're giving people opportunity to feel part of a ruach that you're creating, a mission that you're creating, that feel, getting them bought into something. So don't underestimate that koach. And make sure you have good content. 'Cause you have to have the right story. I mean, I do. Like, listen, I wish I was naturally funny, but I'm not a funny person. You know what I mean? Like, I could have a one-liner, but that's not good enough to open a speech usually, right? So, like, if you're funny, that's fantastic. You know what I mean? But that's a whole koach but I just don't have that koach. I don't even think I should be working on that. Like to get like what you were saying before. Like, I think I could be more open, but I don't think that I'm going to become funny tomorrow enough to open
Mhm.
a speech like that. Like I'm just not. But I don't,
Mhm.
but I think that means you have to find other ways of engaging people, like, instead of the humor, which is very valuable if you can. You know. So yeah, that's the
That's
a
awesome.
a few pieces of advice.
Right. I noticed. I noticed also that you have titles for your speech. Is that an outcome of you recording them for the week afterwards, or did you always have?
I always have them because when you write a 5-page document, you title it, right? Like so I could just write, but like me Kate's, but like I title it. I find titling helpful because it helps for me distill the nakuda of the speech. Like the nakuda of this week's speech, I think was called like a machanech is worth more than all the PhDs in Harvard or something like that. It's
Yeah.
along those lines, right? So that distilled the nakuda of the speech, you know. And I try and do that. I don't spend a tremendous amount of time doing it, but sometimes I feel like it could have been a better title, but
But it
but
encapsulates the point that you're trying to make, the takeaway that you want them
I
to read.
try, yeah, I try and do that. And it helps in my mind clarify for me what I'm saying. A lot of times speeches have different parts and like you can meander. You know what I mean? You can go down a bunny hole, or like you can also spend too much time on the Dvar Torah. If you spend too much time developing your Dvar Torah, you're gonna lose people in the middle of developing it. Right? So it
Mhm.
has to be the right amount of time.
Yeah.
I typically have 5 bullets in a speech, 5 to 6 in an average speech.
And when you say bullets, these are what
It's
elements of the speech?
typically 4 to 5 pages double spaced, and it's typically topics. So like this past week, I think I had 5. I had uh the the opening, which was the opening with the back and forth with the university professors. I had the Dvar Torah. I had the story. I had talk about Mechanchim, and then I had the conclusion. So I went from 5. There were 5 stages in the development of the speech and the
Right.
progression. They mostly have 5, between 4 and 6,
Hmm.
usually 5.
And that keeps you on track. That you have a framework.
Like I have a framework. I know I don't want it to go so long. There's nothing you can't say in 18 minutes. You know what I mean? Like TED Talks
Oh,
has, and 15 minutes is better, and
yeah. Well, what you're doing is working. I can tell from the pews, and keep up the great work. And it's very interesting to hear all the different styles. Like speaking to Rabbi Glasser, his style was much more growth oriented. And he said there are people that won't attend because they don't want to hear that. They're not interested.
Oriented.
What's that?
Like you won't talk about politics or anti-Semitism.
Yeah, no, it doesn't talk about that. Not timely matters. I'll talk about Israel, because it's important, for our own individual experience. But he's much more, how do we make Shabbos more meaningful? How do we make this more meaningful? How do I want to see growth. I want to be able to measure it. I want to, in that regard. It's interesting to me how there's kind of like a broader transformation that you're aiming for. I think that, it's
I really
which is. And it's effective as well, because you'd say, well, how do you measure that? And well, if you've been speaking about Mechanchem since Rosh Hashanah, and you've already raised $100,000 plus and had a kiddush around that theme already a couple months later, so clearly it's transformational.
Yeah, it also like people grow different ways. What's like is not speaking Lashon Hara really the next right perfect best step for every person in the shul? No, so you say, okay, so this week's you got Lashon Hara, this week's about brachos, this week's about whatever, talking during davening, and doing mitzvahs with zrizos, and all these are important things. I'm not minimizing them, but I feel like people's growth is more spawned on by an environment than a message. I feel like when people are immersed in an environment, the environment creates a certain ruach.
Mm-hmm. It's a fertile ground, you're saying, for growth. You're laying the.
In other words, I agree that the goal of the rabbi is growth. I once had a rabbi told me, I once asked a mono-Orthodox pulpit rabbi, very prominent one, I asked him, like, a lot of your congregants don't seem to be growing. How do you measure success? So he told me, they're not your trophies to be won. And like it was like very stark back at me, and it was his model was, we're the religion store, and if people want to come into the religion store and buy something, we're available for them, but we're not trying to push them. That was his model. That might be what was worked for his community. And he's an amazing person, so I'm not at all judging that, but that's not how I view it. I don't view it that way. I think that a rabbi's job in a shul, especially out of town, is to create a framework and a culture with a ruach in which the people that are immersed in that culture will want to take the next step in their lives, whatever that is for them. So like the overall goal is to create that spirit and that point of view. But I'm not here to tell anyone this is the next thing you should be doing, unless they ask me what I think. But even then, how do I have the audacity to tell them the next thing they should be doing in their lives? You know what I mean?
What if you were talking? So we had a conversation. I told you this would be the last question, but this is fascinating to me.
It's a fun conversation for me. I don't talk so much.
Yeah, we had. So 2 years ago, you gave a very impactful schmooze about. The point was that the hostages' lives have changed, have our lives changed,
Right.
and so afterwards, I asked you, I was curious.
Right.
You can't give them something. You can't call up to action to one specific action. Have everybody do one thing, because there's so many different types of people, different. But why wouldn't you say, come to me? Let's personalize a form of action. Let's Did you not see that as your place, or was that just not?
I'm a little bit uncomfortable with that, because I'm not a rabbi that's very hierarchical. You know what I mean? Like I'm not telling people what to do. I don't like to tell people what to do. That's
Not necessarily tell, but collaborate with.
I'm not saying that there's no place for that collaboratively or whatever. I'm just saying, like, naturally, that's not my inclination to tell people what to do. Like, I don't think I was thinking in let's come together and collaborate on the create a growth plan for everyone individually. Like, I think it would have been, therefore we should all do X, was probably what I would have said or would have considered. and yeah, that's not authentic. I don't think that's authentic. You know, I don't think it's authentic because it's really not one size fits all, and some things are relevant for one person and totally not relevant for another person. And people have to decide. And like, I guess with what I'm trying to say is that like I feel that I'm not doing them a disservice by not giving them something specific to latch onto, because first of all, I don't know the answer to that question. Like we're having this awakening, right? The Klal Yisrael, the world, having this awakening in light of October 7th. And what have I done with it? I don't know. I'm not sure what I've done with it.
Right.
Should I do something with it? Yeah, I should do something. What should I? I don't know. Maybe that's because I haven't sat down and meditated on it enough, But do I know that there's a opening of the heart? I do know. And so like when I say a message like that, which is in a certain sense generic, but powerful in light of the circumstances, you know, it's by the way, that came from a title. That line came from the title.
Which one? Remind me.
How did their lives have
Oh,
changed?
yeah. Right.
So so that's like a powerful thing. And my hope is that it plants seeds and that we're doing enough collectively in the shul that'll give them something to latch onto that makes sense for them.
Mhm.
So whether
So,
they're
so if I understand you correctly,
or they're going to raise money from a kind, like my hope is that it will create fertile ground, a speech like that, for them to latch on to something that we're
so you're saying that if that speech was given in a vacuum, let's say it was a one-off speech somewhere, then maybe all the inspiration would dissipate. You're saying because it's in the context of a growth-oriented institution, so someone who's moved will find themselves drawn towards a program, drawn towards an initiative, drawn towards something. You're saying that it's in the
my hope
Mascara.
is that's another brick in the framework that we're building, and
Mhm.
that inspires someone to say that, maybe I should. There are people that did real things. Some people took on Shabbos in this community
Yeah,
after some women started cutting their hair, you know, in the aftermath of 10/7. So like
yeah.
that's amazing. And so some people really took something on, and the hope is that like what I should say everyone should cover their hair. Like that's
Right,
that, you
right.
know what I mean?
So
Like
I understand
like
that.
when
So
this guy
I
don't
only
watch an
thought,
hour, maybe the person that wanted to cover their hair is not going to cover their hair, or do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's
right,
so, to me, some of these calls are so behavioral and contrived that
right.
like
That's why I thought it would be an opportunity for them, for you
no,
to,
I hear your point. It could be that like let's come together and collaborate, but like, are people really going to take you up on that offer? How many people do you think takes a rabbi up on that offer that
well,
you're making?
what would it do is it would identify for you who's very
Right.
growth
Yeah,
oriented in that respect.
it could
Yeah.
be. It could
But
be. I feel that
I didn't
pressure.
think of it in the broader picture that you're describing. That it's not a one-off. It's not in a vacuum. You're saying there is a growth groundswell, and so that they can, if they're inspired, they can find themselves moving towards those opportunities. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a lot of growth in people that I don't think you would have imagined at Beth Jacob, and in different ways. And each one like is their own way. Like someone likes to say, people like to point out how other people sin. You know what I mean? Like everyone likes to point out the other guy sins. Look, how could he do this? Or how could he do that? Or you know what I mean? But the same person that did that also changed in this other way that you don't care about so much or not appreciating.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, and there are people like there's a person that, whatever, I don't want to get too specific, but like there's a person that's criticized to me, people criticize about him to me a lot about a particular thing that he does. And they don't realize that he's grown on five other axes.
tell them that. You let them know that.
Sometimes depends who it is, you know what I mean? Like depends on the situation, but like this, for real, this person that a lot of people are critical of for a particular thing, I could identify several concrete other areas in which they've grown, and they're on an upward growth trajectory. So I should
Mhm.
beat them with the head because of that thing. And if I say
Right,
you shouldn't do X and shot, like, so that's
right.
there's you have to make growth part of like we have growth I guess that's part of building the culture, right? You create easy different entry points, and there are a lot of different entry points. You want to do daf yomi, you want to do kinyan masech, you want to do amud yomi, you want to learn with your kids on just a Sunday morning. You want to go on a yarchei kala, you want to get involved in this, that, or the other. It's there are opportunities, and people take them up. And some people do personal things in their lives that are meaningful, and other people see when people do those things.
Right. Okay, amazing. That was awesome. so good to talk to you. We never get the chance to really talk about this.
It's fun for me to talk about, because I don't usually talk about this subject with anyone. What I mean?
Yeah. You've been listening to The Maggid Method, and I'm Daniel Steinberg. Learn more about the Maggid Method at maggidmethod.com, maggidmethod.com. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.